Hi everybody, this is Andy Chan. If you're new to my channel, welcome. What I do in this watch list is I explain an Excel model that I started creating quite some time ago and that I keep tweaking over time. So I guess this is actually my second video on this new channel. I had all my content on my personal YouTube channel, but now I've separated everything out. So I'm slowly rebuilding the content. It's middle of July, and what I've been doing lately is I've been just re-uploading some old videos I created a while ago, just because this channel is new and you may have not have seen the material. So I just wanted to give everybody a sense of what the features are, and I'm obviously only uploading stuff that's still accurate to the Excel file as it sits now. So obviously this, well, maybe not obviously, but this watch list is really geared towards other immigration practitioners. So if you happen to stumble upon my channel and if you're hoping to immigrate to Canada, I have a link to my company's site. And it's my strong feeling that if you're looking for an immigration path for PNP, odds are your English is pretty good already, and you should be able to probably get through these steps on your own. So I also leave an affiliate link with the Canadian Immigration Institute. I really like how they go about doing things, in that they teach you through a fairly lengthy video, of course, what all these steps are, what the gotchas are, and a really good checklist. I actually paid for watched it myself. So, anyways, in this video, I'm bringing forward something I first did a couple years ago, and what's in the model. What I've been doing typically is I would have a set of scoring. For example, the CRS score, the Federal Skilled Worker score, individual PNP scores. What I originally did a couple years ago was that I realized, well, not everything in economic immigration is based on a score. Some streams, and it sounds like there's a chance that the federal government's thinking along these lines too. Some streams are geared towards work experience in a particular NOC. So what I did before, and I thought, well, how do I represent its importance? If you're an immigration practitioner, how do you show this importance to your client? What I came up with was a heat map, and I'm showing, like, I've got my slide deck open. So what I've done in this latest version is this, and here's the logic, and it's kind of arbitrary actually. I went through the various PNP websites, from like all the way from British Columbia all the way to the Maritimes. So what I've done is I keyed in, and I had to go through a lot of PDFs. I keyed in all the in-demand NOC codes for the various streams in one table, and I'll show you in a second. So with that list of the province and the NOC code, the logic I'm applying to the heat map is this. If your primary occupation isn't a NOC that shows up on the province's in-demand stream, I render the province as a dark green. Nextly, if your candidate happens to have work experience in that NOC code, but maybe for whatever reason designated another primary occupation, but that person has work experience in that province, in that NOC code, then it's like this, like the intermediate shade of green. But then lastly, I decided, well, it would be also helpful if you show the fact that your client has work experience in that NOC code, but happens to be somewhere else. So hopefully, I wanted to have a color code to identify the importance of that work experience and the primary occupation to the province's set of streams. So what I'll do is I'll go into the Excel file now and I'll show you how everything's laid out. Okay, so this is a brand new tab I just added, and I've zeroed out everything. And and unlike some of the other like tabs I have here, I did write down some of my thoughts and some of the logic. All right, so here's the heat map, and it's just a built-in Excel map of Canada. Okay, I've got some formulas here to basically drive this map. So the values that are possible are 0, meaning that there's no match. A 1 indicating that um, that that particular knock code, a particular knock code, that person has some experience, but it was in another region, another country, another province. If it's a number 2, it will be an intermediate shade of green, and that means that your client does have work experience in that province, in that knock code, in that province's in demand list. And then lastly, the darkest shade of green, I have a number assigned of 3, and that'll be the darkest shade of green, and that indicates again that that person has identified the primary occupation as that knock code in the province's stream. And obviously, I think 99% of the time, 99% of the time, your client, if that's a primary occupation, odds are they'll have work experience, but maybe somewhere else. And it wouldn't be, I guess, too common have a lot of work experience, but go with, but that person decides to go with a completely different primary occupation. It could be cases where that person is in IT, and the and the work performed is maybe 51% versus 49%. Some those kind of scenarios. But what I'll do, and I don't want to get too technical. Maybe I'll show you some of the how the formulas work. But once you see the logic, you'll understand what I'm trying to do. So here's the list, and I'll show you the list really quickly. So basically what I did was I went into every single province's PNP website, and I grabbed all the individual knock codes and I keyed it in here. And I'll quickly walk through through a web browser some of the URLs that I went through. Okay, but just to quickly get into example, what I'll do is this. Everything's I guess cleared out. So what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll key in a primary occupation for a client. Say I'm going to use a systems analyst, 2131. And I apologize if you can't see this list, because I don't think there's a way Microsoft has allowed to make this font any bigger. All right. So I know NOC 2171 is on several provinces in demand stream. All right. So all I've did is I've keyed in the NOC code, and I'll go back to my heat map, and you'll see that in BC, Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland, and God help me if that's Prince Edward Island or Nova Scotia. I'm horrible with maritime geography, but based on 2171, you'll know that that NOC code is on this list somewhere. So if I go look for 2171, you'll know that the reason why BC turned green is that 2171 is one of the tech occupations on the BC PNP website. And what I did was I actually typed in every single URL that it came from. Okay, so that's what's driving that solid green. Okay, so let me just go back to my slide deck, and because I actually went into the first example already. So I just explained that the darkest green indicates that the NOC code, but the primary occupation NOC code matches that particular province's uh, NOC code in the in-demand stream. So I already did this first example. John Wong, he studied computer science and business in Canada. He's on a postgraduate work permit and is working as a systems analyst. That's why we keyed in the primary occupation 2171. But what if something like this were to happen? Later, you realize when you're talking to him, if you're the RCIC, he says, well, actually, while in school, he decided to get a commercial driver's license, and because he loves seeing the country. He drove around for a couple of different trucking companies in different provinces, and truck drivers. The NOC code is 7511. So let me go back to the spreadsheet really quick. Well, you probably know the 7511 is actually a high demand job. So what I'll do is I will go in to the data entry tab. So I've used that 2171 as a primary occupation already. So what I'll do is I'll just key in a couple of those NOC codes here. So what I did is this. I wanted to show that in the past, he was a truck driver in Ontario and New Brunswick, and he currently has some work experience as a systems analyst. Now, notice that I did not key in any start date, end dates, or hours. This particular heat map isn't that sophisticated because I really didn't want to go into have to make sure that the person has the right quantity of work within the set duration that those particular in-demand streams require. That's a whole different set of calculations. What I really intended on this heat map was just a quick visual presentation so you as an RCIC can show it to your client and just maybe play around with some different alternatives. So for example, if for whatever reason you have a client that's here, is working but is in a NOC C or a D job, and you look at that person's resume and you say, oh, wait a minute, if you change jobs because you have the experience, if you change jobs to this other NOC C or D, for example, this other province, if you happen to work in that province, then it may be possible for that person to immigrate through another stream. So I've keyed this in, and let's go back to the heat map. So now it gets a little confusing, but I'm thinking maybe confusing in a good way. So again, the dark green implies that, let me just get over there, it implies that the primary occupation matches one of the NOC codes for that province in one of its P&P programs. The lighter shade indicates that that person has work experience in a NOC code and worked in that province for NOC code within that province. So, even though we're talking about two different NOCs in here, this dark green one indicates that that's matching the systems analyst, the systems analyst job. The lighter green one indicates, well, actually, if that for whatever reason doesn't work out, or that person wants to immigrate to Ontario, well, that person may qualify, have a good chance of qualifying because that the person had worked in that NOC in that province. So, this heat map can be a little confusing, but I just wanted to give something to quickly jog the RCIC's memory and just to elicit a longer conversation in those areas. And again, so let me just go over down this list really quick, and I'll open up the web browser. So I wanted to open the web browser because I just wanted to show you where some of the places that I got this information from, all these different NOCs. So I've got the BC, one of the BC ones open, and these are the technical occupations. So I'm just going to scroll down and let me show you the NOC list. So obviously each province has their own way of presenting this information. So this is BC. These are the tech occupations, healthcare occupations, childcare occupations, and the other priority ones. Yeah, each province has a way of presenting this information. A couple of provinces, they don't actually even use NOC codes. I think it was New Brunswick. Yeah, one of these provinces I had a really tough time showing what the equivalent NOC code is like. So here's Saskatchewan. I may need to come back to that one because I had the URL. Let me just go there really. My apologies for that. There's nothing in Saskatchewan. See, I honestly, there's so much data, so much information in it. I actually lose track. So that's the one nice thing about this Excel file. When I go back to it, for me, it's a nice little visual summary of what the scoring is and what the individual streams are, and in this case, what the NOC codes are. Ontario keeps a few different lists, and this is the job offer in demand page, and here's the NOC codes. And again, I keyed in all these NOC codes into the Excel file. Nova Scotia, occupations in demand. I keyed in these ones. Nova Scotia has a couple of different pages, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no. Okay, so Express Entry. PEI, they keep it in a PDF. Hopefully you can see that URL. Newfoundland, oh, it was Newfoundland, yeah. I had to guess my way through some of these in-demand occupations, especially the IT ones, because you know, .NET developer, well, .NET is a Microsoft tool, so there's obviously wouldn't be a specific NOC code for a particular company, right? That wouldn't make any sense. So anyways, I had to basically fit that into a particular NOC code. Oh, and by the way, yeah, some of these codes, some of the provinces, even though they specify certain NOC code, it has to be certain industry and a particular subcategory of that particular NOC. So again, you know, the heat map isn't foolproof, and but I thought it would be a nice way to present that information. And actually, I was wrong. It's not New Brunswick because it's Newfoundland. I remember looking at these agriculture sector occupations, and I finally concluded that, you know, it's quite wide ranging, but I think it's not 8411 if I'm not mistaken. I need to double check that. Here's New Brunswick. Sorry, New Brunswick. Yes, only has one NOC code, and that's for truck drivers, and actually that's why I use that in the example. Quebec has a few. Quebec has a IT stream, and I think they have a couple of other ones actually. A NOC in demand, so they have a separate categories for NOC CND jobs. So that's some of the provinces. I've also put in, just for highlighting purposes, some of the Canadian jobs with some of the different pilot programs. That I can't show. That actually, coincidentally, I can't show on that map, on the heat map, and I'll just go back there really quickly. Oops. Yeah, let let me just go up there. That I can't show very easily because I was playing around with it, and if I put in a value for Canada, it kind of blankets the other values. So then it got really confusing. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting a separate value down here just to show it, but this value for Canada isn't shown on this heat map. Okay. So I think that's pretty much it. Oh, let me just go to, yeah, let me just go to the slide deck again really quick. Okay, so that's the second scenario. And then I just, in this slide, I just itemized some of the pages that I used. And then, yeah, I want to just reiterate a couple of things. So I'm not testing to see whether the start and the end of the work is within the required time for each province's P&B. Like for example, some provinces, they want the work experience to be within the last 3 years. I'm also, for the heat map, I'm also not counting the number of hours worked in that NOC. And again, I should have typed this, but just to reinforce that fact, some provinces require that NOC, that work experience, to be in a certain category. To be a certain industry. Despite the fact that you are certain of the NOC, that NOC also, that work experience has to be for a certain type of company. Okay, so let me just go back to the Excel file really quick, see if I can think of anything else I can say. So here's here's the formulas for it. Won't be the most obvious thing, but suffice it to say, I had to come up with a formula to give a value of 0, meaning there's no match at all, 1 meaning there's work experience but in another province, 2 work experience within that province, and 3 the primary NOC matches a NOC code for a stream in the province. I had to come up with a formula to render those unique values because the Microsoft mapping tool uses the higher number to indicate the darker color depth. So that's why I went with 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And actually, yeah, you can see that legend come up there. And again, down here, we have that list. What I do is I compare this value and this value. This I pulled in from this URL, and I'm gonna use these two values to compare the primary occupation and then which province it's from. I've got a couple of other formulas over here to also indicate whether it's a 2 or a 1 value, and I actually use this over in that other column. If you ever want to know where a formula is being used, you can use that trace dependence, and Excel will draw all these little arrows for you. So actually, yeah, this is drifting into something a little too technical, but if you click on one of the lines, then it shows you where which cell is referencing it. So I'll just remove the arrows. So anyways, to wrap everything up, this video is about creating a heat map to show whether your client has work experience or primary occupation for a NOC in that province's one of that province's in-demand streams. If you can't tell, I'm not working off a script. I kind of rambled a little bit. So, but anyways, thank you very much for your attention. I'll try to upload another new video fairly soon. I'm just in the middle of uploading some old Ontario ones. I've got a couple more to do, and then I'll go back and I'll do a example based based on Ontario work experience, and then because now that I've got the model more fleshed out, I want to start showing more how the calculations work, not just for the one P&P, but for the federal calculations, express entry, federal skilled worker, so on and so on, but other provinces as an option too. All right, thank you very much for your time. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.